I think it's only fitting after hearing President Milanovic and President Pahor that I start with a thank you message. And of course, President Pendarovsky, but a thank you message because the rest of us that are not yet within the European Union are really blessed to have friends like you, President Milanovic and President Pahor. We are really blessed to have you there to speak for us, to fight for us, and to convince the rest of the members of the European Union that we deserve to be there. We deserve to be there because, not just because we are Europeans, not just because we share the same values, but because we are also there up for the challenge, up for the reforms. Secondly, when it comes to the prospects of Ukraine as well as Georgia and Moldova getting the candidate status, obviously Kosovo believes that granting the candidate status to these countries, as it was said before, is a geopolitical decision of a great importance that sends an important message to everyone in Europe and beyond, that we stand with the values on which the European Union was founded, and therefore having Ukraine, Georgia and Moldova there is also an added value for the European Union, apart from being an extremely important message for those countries that have chosen the right path. Because right now, it should be clear for every one of us, and we keep saying it in every single forum, that the path to Moscow and the path to the EU do not cross. They should not cross. They have never been more apart from one another than now. And no one can walk on both paths at once. And that's the least that the EU should expect of us. So those of us that have chosen the right path, not just through statements and speeches, but we're also walking the talk, should get a clear perspective, a clear message, but most importantly, clear action and clear decisions from the European Union. And I believe the June summit is a great opportunity from that. So a positive message towards these countries. I think it's also a positive message for the rest of us that also a decision on the Western Balkans is a geopolitical necessity and a geostrategic decision that the European Union needs to take. Obviously, there's a lot of frustration in the region because a lot of waiting has been happening. And just imagine, Kosovo has been waiting for almost 5 years since the European Commission decided to support visa liberalization for the country. Thousands of our youth, brilliant youth, they missed their orientation day, their graduation day, their PhD defense day, because they can't get a visa appointment. It is as absurd as that. This is a great injustice towards the people of Kosovo, which should end. And of course, I want to once again call upon all the member states of the European Union to make this very easy decision. This is not a tough decision to make. It's a very easy decision because we have fulfilled all of the criteria and because there's absolutely no reason to keep the people of Kosovo in a ghetto. And secondly, when it comes to the candidate status, obviously, of Bosnia-Herzegovina, which we hope Kosovo will also get soon since we are planning to apply for this year, we believe that the time was yesterday, but we really do hope that this will also be seen from the prism of understanding that the more space that the transatlantic partnership, especially the European Union, the more vacuum the European Union leaves in the Western Balkans, the more maligned Russian and Chinese influence that there will be. So I think the situation is very simple. You want to fight Russia and Russian influence? Recognize Kosovo. Recognize Kosovo's independence. Allow for visa liberalization to happen. Support Kosovo's candidate status as well as Bosnia's candidate status. You want to fight Russian influence? Support North Macedonia and Albania moving forward. You want to fight Russian influence? Well, support Montenegro moving even higher than it has so far. You want to fight Russian influence? Well, you have to also fight their proxies in our region. you also have to fight their proxies in our region. If members of the European Union really want to be clear on their fight towards Russian influence and Chinese influence on their own soil, because we are European soil, they need to be honest and clear and stop the appeasement policy, the active appeasement policy that sometimes is taking place against Russian proxies. Honesty is extremely important, which is why we believe that the clear message that Chancellor Scholz has given, both in Kosovo as well as in Serbia, that Serbia must recognize Kosovo, is the way forward. Because mutual recognition, as we all know, is the only solution that can bring for long-lasting peace and stability in the region. Therefore, I will conclude with this. The EU must stand united on three main fronts. The first one, obviously, is Ukraine, because in response to Russia and its proxies, we need to make sure that the unity of the European Union continues to be our most important power, to show that the power in partnership is what's going to win this war. Secondly, the European Union must show that it is united in response to the aspiring democratic countries, and I note again, democratic countries, those that truly work for rule of law, democracy, and human rights, in order to allow for accelerated membership for these countries, including the Western Balkans. And finally, the EU must stand united when it comes to Kosovo. First, for the 5 non-recognizers to show that they truly are against Russian malign influence and therefore recognize Kosovo. Secondly, support visa liberalization. And finally, also support our candidate status once we apply. It may seem as nothing to some, but in the candidate status there is hope. There is hope. And there is seriousness on the way and the response that the EU sends to us. And that means if we get a candidate status, it means that the message they're sending to us is that they want us in. And what the Western Balkans needs right now most is a clear message that our seat, our place, where we belong, is in the European Union. Hopefully, in the June summit, we're going to hear encouraging messages like this, but at the same time, we need action. And let me conclude once again by reconfirming what I think is only fitting after President Zelensky's speech. We stand with the people of Ukraine. We stand with Ukraine because through standing with Ukraine, we're standing with the very values that are at the foundation of our country. Protection of human rights, protection of democracy, and never allowing one to bully the other just because they have the military might. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Excellency. But if I can ask you, if I can follow up with a short question, what do you think are the risks or the potential consequences of member states continuing to hesitate with regards to the Balkans?
Is this working? Yes. I think the evidence is there very clear, and the members of the European Union should simply look at it, analyze it, and see it. It is extremely clear from history that whenever the European Union and the United States of America, the transatlantic partnership that we so much rely on, have left vacuum, as I earlier said, for other forces, obviously these other malign forces have used it. We have seen it in the past decades. But what the evidence that is clearer nowadays in the past few years, which is fresh, even very much fresh from the oven from Lavrov's as well as Putin's recent statements, is that their interest is to expand the conflict beyond Ukraine. It was also reconfirmed by President Zelensky today. They want to make sure that there are other conflict zones within the European continent. And Putin has been talking a lot about Kosovo, a lot about the Western Balkans. Obviously, he wants to make false narratives and false comparisons. But there is only one comparison that can be made, and that is what is Putin doing today, Milosevic was doing a few decades ago in our region, committing war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide. That's the only comparison that can be made. But another thing that Putin tells us is where he wants to target next. Obviously, through all kinds of influence, starting with propaganda machines that they are using in the Western Balkans. A lot of disinformation is happening. And then with all kinds of hybrid wars that they would want to see in our part of the region. So it is extremely important that the European Union understands that the more they delay the integration of the Western Balkans within the EU, within the Union, the more space Russia will have to increase its influence and potentially also destabilize the region. So I really do hope that this will be taken into account in the next summit, as well as the next summits, because obviously we know that, and we've learned it the hard way, that these things are lasting longer than they should. They will take this into account and support all of us to move forward on a merit-based process.
Thank you so much. I would like to continue a little bit in that direction and move on to